So I understand you've produced 2 films. One was shot on film, the other one on digital. I'd like you to weigh in on the pros and cons of shooting on digital.
On shooting, okay. On shooting, digital was easier because we just, captured everything on set, put it into our card, and then put it into our drive, and then we did a backup drive, and so we could contain the media and have it ready for post a lot easier. In shooting on film, you have to do a telecine process, which is expensive, and then you get back tapes, and then you have to put the tapes into a tape player, which then goes into a computer. So it's a lot more lengthy, but the problem was it was a little scary because you were erasing your master card. In other words, you shoot on a P2 card, and then once you offload it to the different drives, you put that card back into the camera and erase it. And so if that material is not on those drives, you just erased your day's work or whatever. So it's a little bit scary, but once you get used to it, the workflow is better and it is cheaper.
Okay. How did you get started in producing and directing your own film?
I was, inspired as a kid by certain films, and I wanted to go to film school. So I was lucky enough to go to USC Film School. And while I was at USC, I was told that the best place to really learn about cameras, because I was more interested in cameras at the time, was the equipment room, because you got more hands-on, checking in the cameras. So the RES and the Enclair and the Aton and all those cameras, I really got hands-on experience, and I thought that would lead me to a job. Turns out, one of the other co-workers there said, hey, I have a friend, he spends 14 hours in the dark. He was setting this up really well. 14 hours in the dark, and he edits movies. Are you interested in helping him out? He's looking for an assistant. And, somebody in school, that sounds like this is my break, So I said, okay, sure, I'll go editing. It happens that way. It doesn't like you have a goal that you want to do, and then whatever job comes available, you're smart enough to take it. So luckily I was smart enough at that point to take it. So I worked weekends for free, and then I stayed with that editor, and he eventually paid me a little tiny sum for a small movie called Substitute 3. No, I worked on that later, I'm sorry. It was called Showdown. And then we worked on another movie called Double Dragon. And that was a low-budget film, but it went union. And so I was brought into the union because the show went union. And I was really lucky. I know everybody gets into the union, the Editors Guild, of course, in different ways, but I got in because the show got kind of bumped up, and my paycheck got bumped up, and I'm like, I'm liking this. So I stayed with this editor, and I worked on different shows, as an assistant, and later on as an editor.
Great. So you edit your own films right now as well. So your background in editing led to you producing and directing and writing your own feature-length scripts.
Yeah, I always wanted to direct, I went to film school with that ambition, and I'd already made a lot of small films. And so I think my goal with these editing jobs was to see how the industry does it, take notes, and then basically go off and do my own features. And that kind of synergy worked out really well. For example, around the mid-90s, I left some of my editing jobs, which were paying good, by the way, so it was a tough decision to make. But I went and shot my first film, which is called Mr. Lucky. Ended up starring Jerry Manthe, who's the big kind of not so well-liked girl from Survivor 2, who eventually posed for Playboy. So we kind of had a small star. Anyway, she wasn't a star then, but we shot this on LA streets. We shot in really high-profile locations, but having been in the stockroom, I knew I could get into these locations with a small camera. So the RES is very small. It only holds 100-foot magazine loads, which now everybody talks about using digital cameras. But I think that you could have got all those shots with a small film camera, and we did. We got to the Hollywood sign. We filmed the car chase on the 405 freeway in LAX, and this is, of course, pre 9/11. So it was a great experience. But to make a long story short, when I finished it, I had to telecine it. And I didn't quite know Avid at the time. I had only taken film jobs because the 90s was the era when the industry transformed from film to digital. The starting of the 90s, very few people were cutting on Avid. By the end of the 90s, it was it was dramatically different. So I was lucky to be a part of that change. So I knew I had to go into the digital realm. So I got on a show called In God's Hands as a film assistant. And then they were cutting on Avid. And so I started to learn Avid. So I would go into the editing room really early in the morning with my drives for my film, Mr. Lucky, and then cut on Avid. And then I would assist on Avid during the day for my job. So I started to learn, you know, and I made that transition. And so, you know, that was really a good benefit for me. Zalman King was the director of In God's Hands, and he was really kind to me. He's since passed away, but he allowed me to do that because as a low-budget filmmaker, you have to draw upon any resource you have. You don't have money, you have just lots of time.
That's actually my next question. A lot of days, people have to wear many hats, particularly a lot of actors feel, oh, I'm not just an actor, I'm a producer, I'm a writer, I'm a director. Does this weigh in with your casting at all? Are you impressed at all by an actor who claims to know how to produce and edit and direct as well?
I think it helps, you know. I think if they respect the jobs behind the camera more, they know, you know, look, we have to meet this spot, here's your tape marks, otherwise focus will be off. Because honestly, you know, as an actor, you don't want your face to be out of focus, right? And so, you know, but it's tough because you're in your element, and so you have to deal with not only your acting job, but the specifics of the film, which is tough because, you know, you have to get the focus right. But also budget constraints. You know, you want to go in there prepared so you're not wasting anybody's time because they don't have, you know, as many takes as they would have liked to be able to do. So I definitely think it helps to have the background of film for an actor, yes.